Hi and welcome to Rose Red Homestead. It is a beautiful October fall day. This is the third video in our 3-video series of 3 different things that we're going to be putting together in a meal at the end of this video. Today we are going to do spicy pork chunks, and so we'll get right to that in just a moment. So I have 12 pounds of pork chunks right here. Jim helped me put these into chunks last night. We started with about 16 pounds of meat and there was a little bit of waste on it. This is pork shoulder. We are going to do hot pack meat this time instead of raw pack. I've demonstrated several times the raw pack of meats in chicken and beef, and you can do either raw pack or hot pack for all of these meats. But I've not ever demonstrated a hot pack before, so we're going to do a hot pack. And the idea is that the meat needs to be, of course, hot when you put it in the jars. So that is what we're going to do. I'm going to spread the meat on these baking sheets, trying to get it distributed about evenly. We'll see how evenly it goes. Good thing I sanitized my countertop before we started. All right, let me bring the other one over here so we can judge if they're about even. Okay, pretty good. Rinsing my hands. Then I'm just going to drizzle a little bit of oil over the top, not a lot. And some salt. Probably about a teaspoon. And now some fresh ground pepper. I have my oven going at 425, and these are going to be in the oven for about 30 minutes. We don't want them cooked all the way through. We want them to get good and browned. And so I'm just going to work everything in with my hands a little bit. The oil needs to be spread around, and the salt and pepper. Same with this one. These are going in the oven, and we'll come back and I'll show you what needs to be done with the broth. While the meat chunks are heating and browning in the oven, we are going to be simmering the broth that we will pour in over the chunks. Now this, of course, is our chicken bone broth that we put together in our last video. This was the quart that didn't quite come all the way to the top, and since it was the 8th quart, I just have stored it in the refrigerator for a couple of days until we were ready to do this video. So it is going in. And this is one of our ones that came out of that canned batch. There we go. And it is going in. Now, since we have 12 pints already over here and 12 pounds of chunks in the oven, I'm hoping that it will work out just about evenly. So this is the chicken bone broth. I'm going to add some flavorings to make this a spicy broth. This is 1 onion that I have sliced quite thinly, and so it's going in. I'm also going to be adding 2 tablespoons of red pepper and 1.5 teaspoons of oregano. So those are going in right here. And lastly, I'm putting in 3 cloves of garlic that I've minced. This is fresh garlic. So it's going to go in here too. And I'm going to be adding a little bit more salt. Probably about another teaspoon of salt. So I'm going to put this on to simmer, and it will be simmering slowly during the 30 minutes that the chunks are browning in the oven. And we want to simmer this ahead of time, not just to get it hot, but so that those flavors will blend into the chicken bone broth. So we'll be back when we're ready to put everything together into the jars. The pork is just out of the oven. It is browned, but it is not done, not by a long shot. And that is just fine because it is going to be processed for another hour and 15 minutes when we're done. So it's rendered quite a bit of juice, which I'm not going to pick up. I'm just going to start loading the jars. And then we will spoon in or ladle in the hot broth. All right, when I get all 12 of these filled, then we'll come back and put the broth in. We had enough meat for 16 pints, and so I'm doing the last 4 right here. The others are already waiting for us out in the canner. So I'm ladling the broth in, and Jim suggested that I not discard the juice from the meat, but to add it to the broth, so I did. And I'm really glad he suggested that because that really was a good idea. So I'm leaving 1 inch headspace on these, and remember the broth has those onions in it, and what happens when I pour the broth in is that the onions just stay right there on the top, which is just fine. So I'm going to check for air bubbles, make sure I have about 1 inch headspace, wipe with vinegar on this paper towel, put lid and ring on. Okay, I'll do 1 more on camera and then we'll finish the rest of these and meet you out at the canner. I'm going to have just a little bit of broth left, but it's not much to worry about. I tasted this broth and it is nice and spicy. It has a little bit of heat to it with the crushed peppers that we put in. And so if you're going to be making this for your family, if you are not fond of super hot stuff, you might want to decrease the amount of those peppers. The dried pepper flakes. Okay, when I get finished with these, we'll see you out at the canner and we'll get things going. So the last 4 are going in the canner. We have 8 on the bottom rack and 8 on the top rack. All wide mouth except for this one in the middle. I ran out of wide mouth pints when I had to do a few more. So we're fine, and the water is simmering, the jars are hot, the meat is hot, the broth was hot. So we're going to be putting this on. There's the lid. And when this has vented for 10 minutes, big steam coming out this vent, after it's vented for 10 minutes and replace the air with steam, then we will bring the dial up to between 13 and 15 pounds pressure, And these have to process for 1 hour and 15 minutes. Then we'll be finished and we'll come back when we're ready to take them out of the canner. So see you then. The temperature just finished dropping low enough so that the pressure is gone. Just double checking. Yep. So opening this up. And here's our moment of truth. Oh, these look lovely. Just lovely. All right, we'll unload the canner now. All right, we have 16 pints of spicy pork chunks. Now the broth that we used our chicken bone broth. So there are 2 of the ingredients that we're going to be using for our special meal. The other ingredient in our first video is this chipotle tomatillo salsa. So here's what we're going to do. Next week at our university is fall break, and we this afternoon are loading up our trailer, and we'll load our 4-wheelers, and in about 3 days we're headed up to Bryce Canyon. And so we are going to take 1 jar of this salsa and 1 jar of the pork chunks, and when we get up camping we'll make a very quick and easy meal, which we will show you on the video to end this video. So we'll see you up at Bryce Canyon. Hi again, and here we are at our camping spot at Bryce Canyon National Park. And we've had a great couple of days. We're going to have a great couple of more days, but we're getting ready to have lunch now before we take our 4-wheelers on our ride through the surrounding forests. So here are the products of our 3 videos. This is the chipotle tomatillo salsa, and we're going to be using that in our meal today. And then this is our spicy pork chunks in our chicken bone broth. So 3 videos, and we're now ready to fix a meal. So I'm going to tell you what's going to happen, and then we'll put the pieces together and show you how it all looks at the end. So I have these little divided plates that we use for camping, and so we're going to have open face tacos, and these tacos are just a little bit different than the usual tacos that we have. So I'm going to place the tortillas right here, and then the meat will be here, and then we'll have 3 toppings here when we get finished. So the first thing that we do, and I've mentioned this in previous videos, whenever I open a jar, particularly of our canned meat chunks, the first thing that I do for food safety is to smell. First was the pop, the smell, and it smells wonderful. And then I'm going to put the whole thing into this little saucepan, and then I boil this meat for 10 minutes. Now the reason that we do this, I always do this, is because just in case there happens to be any toxin from any bacteria in here, boiling it for 10 minutes destroys completely all of the toxin. So I'm going to run and do that inside our trailer, and then when we're done with that, I'll be right back. Okay, so I have a little bowl and a strainer here, and what I'm going to do, this has boiled for 10 minutes, and I'm just going to strain the liquid out. I have it on a little trivet there, which is my canning ring, making sure that as much liquid as possible is out. And so here's the liquid. I'm going to reserve that liquid just in case I'm going to need it in a minute. Then what I'm going to do is put the meat chunks right here in this little square pan, and I'm going to flake it. And it just falls apart. It is so tender. And so I want it flaked so that it will work for a little bit better for tacos. And then I have a little convection oven in the trailer, and I'm going to go put this in the oven because I want these edges just a little bit charred. And you don't have to do that. It's just a thing that I like with our open-faced tacos. So I'm going to run and do that, and then when I come back, I think we'll be ready to eat. We are 1 minute from lunch, so here are the final preparations. I want to shake this up and make sure it's well distributed. Then I'm going to open it. And then it's going to go in this little section. And I just do this because these plates are so fun. Now we set this aside. And we have some of those meat-eating bees around. Here is the meat just out of the oven, and I've added a little cilantro to it. I did not need to add any of the liquid because it didn't dry out too much at all. So here's the meat that we will share, and the warm tortillas. And so here are Jim's 4 and my 2. This is tomatoes, feta cheese. Here's the salsa. This is shredded cabbage. I really prefer to have little strips of radishes and little long haystack pieces, but nobody around any place has radishes right now, so I'm substituting cabbage. So that's what the plate looks like when we're ready to eat. So this is how we used 3 of our different foods that we produced in these 3 videos. So thanks so much for joining us. Wish you could be here with us. The weather is fabulous, and it's so fun being up here in this beautiful setting. And we will see you at our next video.